Recently, I've had questions about the paper that I like to use. So today we're going to create a few jelly prints using all of my favorite papers. Welcome to the studio, it's Froyle here. I'm so glad you've joined me. I've had quite a few questions about the paper that I like to use when I'm jelly printing. So today I'm going to show you all of my secrets. And my absolutely favorite techniques for using stunning, beautiful papers that create glorious prints. There's been a little confusion around the rice paper. When someone asks me what I use and I say rice paper, I'm thinking that they're thinking of the traditional rice paper. But this is the rice paper that I'm talking about. It's the Japanese sketch paper in this pad. I saw Elizabeth using it. I absolutely love it. It's strong yet absorbent and can pull prints with multiple layers, which is what I'm really loving at the moment. I've even found that I can leave this paper on the plate for hours until every layer is perfectly dry. Even if you're spraying the paint or plastering it with ice inks or creating with multiple stencils and layers and stamps and all of the jelly printing that I love to do, this paper will pull all of those layers off if you leave it long enough. Now that is the trick in the equation. You have to leave all of the layers long enough on the plate to dry so that when you pull that print, it pulls up all of the paint right to the gel plate. It's absolutely fabulous. I love this paper. I'm using it all the time. So when you ask me about what paper I'm using and I say rice paper, this is the one I'm talking about. And because it is rice paper, it's porous and absorbent, and you can spray on the back and the paper will seep through right to the front. Yes, that's an absolute bonus. I love the way this paper does that. Like these ones, you can then spray them, color in those white areas. It's really just one way. It's only one technique to be able to color in those areas. There's so many others, but this is really quick and easy, especially with the ice inks. So you don't need to be confused when you ask me and I say rice paper. Not to be confused with the traditional rice paper. Well, actually, this is mulberry paper. It's not actually rice paper, and mulberry paper is made from bark. This is the beautiful Coo paper. I absolutely love this paper. It's so soft, it's so absorbent. Your stencil or your mask down on the gel plate, this kind of paper absorbs the paint. So it sucks it up from the plate in the shape around your mask or within your stencils. The ghost print can look absolutely beautiful, although you might need to give a little cleanup to the shapes to make it more clean and crispy so that when you put another color on, you can pull it off the plate. So for this, I'm using the fabulous wet strength tissue, which is, yes, another one of my favorite papers. I know wet strength tissue is a little bit more expensive, but I use it for so many different jelly printing techniques that it really is worth it to me. You can pull multiple layers off the plate. You can leave it on the plate for hours before you pull it off to make sure that paint's dry. And because I'm quite heavy-handed and I like to use a good thick layer of paint, the wet strength tissue really does handle it very well. Now, why would I want to only create one print when I can create multiple? Have a look at these beautiful prints. The beautiful Coo paper gets right into the shapes, absorbing all that paint and pulling it off the plate. And the ghost prints look fabulous because, yes, there's a nice thin layer left on that plate, pulls up beautifully. I just love it. Now, I wouldn't pull the ghost print up with the Coo paper because it is very soft and it is very absorbent and it will leave some behind. But then we pull out my favorite wet strength tissue and we clean up that ghost print and it looks absolutely stunning. Now this time I'm using the traditional Chinese rice paper that my son brought me home from Shanghai. It's very, very absorbent. Using a stencil, the paint is going to absorb into the paper. It's going to suck it up off the plate, but it's really going to leave a fair amount behind as well on the ghost print. I had a try pulling up the ghost print with the traditional Chinese rice paper and it's not too bad. It's not absolutely brilliant because it doesn't have that resistance. And when it comes to jelly printing, resistance is your friend. You need the paper to be strong enough to pull the resistance off the plate and pick up all the paint, especially if you've got multiple layers. Now, the traditional Chinese rice paper has been created beautifully handmade by craftspeople for that very reason, to absorb, because it's used with a lot of ink and calligraphy and watercolor paints, so it's going to suck up that paint into the fibers of the paper. But what you need for your jelly printing is a paper that's going to give you resistance so it can pull with quite strength off the gel plate. So you have to really know what it is you want to achieve and what paper is going to work best to create those results. The rice papers, the beautiful soft absorbent papers, are a lot of fun and you can create some beautiful textures and marks with them. I absolutely love them. But if you're looking for a paper that's going to pull up multiple layers, especially layers with lots of water or sprays or heavy paint, then you really need something stronger like the Japanese sketch pad or the wet strength tissue. These are my staple papers that I use all the time when I'm printing. So when you're watching me printing something, just know it's going to be probably wet strength tissue or the Japanese sketch pad rice paper. Now, I have used dollar store tissue before, but it doesn't handle well with a lot of paint. It does tear very fast and very quick, and that's quite discouraging. But I did find that the dollar store tissue can be used for using on image transfers. So when you lay the image down on your plate, create the beautiful transfer, especially in the glorious rich gold, you can pull it straight away with dollar store tissue because there's not very much paint on the plate. It's a thin layer, it's a transfer, and it will pull up straight away without tearing. But you still really can't have too much paint on that place or else that dollar store tissue will tear to shreds. This one could have been a little problematic because I did have the bronze a little too thick, but it still did pull up quite nicely. You won't be able to put a second coat of paint on that image transfer or stencils or stamps or create multiple layers if you're going to pull it with a dollar store tissue because yes, it'll shred, it'll go to absolute pieces and there'll be tears. So use the wet strength tissue if you're pulling up multiple layers or lots of paint. Now the white dollar store tissue works just as well. I pulled up this image transfer. It turned out absolutely beautiful. Image transfer, color laser print. You know you've heard me talk about it before. Straight onto the gel plate, straight off with the dollar store tissue. No tears, no tantrums. Easy peasy, but you do have to be fast if you're going to do it like this. Otherwise, if you're going to wait, let your transfer dry and pull it with another colored paint, then you need to step it up and get stronger tissue. There are a whole heap of other tissues you can try. There's tissue to wrap your clothes in, there's tea bag paper, there's all sorts of other papers and tissues that are out there calling to us, waiting for us to try them in an experiment. And you know, it's probably gonna happen. This image transfer really didn't turn out so great. I think I should have made it darker. I mean, it looks beautiful with the copper and the blue. There's the transfer there. I can use that. I could probably try printing with it again. If it's a strong enough laser print, you can actually see the line of the print there from the color laser copy print. So I could try printing it again, but yes, I should have made it darker because I did cover it so much with the background texture. But you do notice I put it on the Japanese sketch pad because I wanted those layers to pull up. You really can feel the difference here with the thinness of quality of the dollar store tissue compared to the wet strength tissue. Have I made you a convert yet? I'm not selling the stuff, I'm just trying to help you. It's so much stronger, it makes such a difference. There's so much less stress in my life because my tissue's not tearing to shreds on the plate. Now, did you know that paper itself makes an absolutely incredible texture on the gel plate? I've experimented with the Coo paper quite a few times, and all I can say is they're absolutely magnificent for creating beautiful marks. So this one here is the glorious lace paper, the one that I actually can't pronounce. It's beautiful. It's beautiful and lacy, extremely textured, and when you put it on the gel plate, push it down with another piece of paper just so it gets a good coverage on the plate, puts that beautiful fibrous textures into the gel plate, and then when you take it off, ta-da, amazing texture. Have a look at this once I've pulled it on. Yes, wet strength tissue. It pulled up absolutely incredible. What I love about this particular paper is the absolute fine detail that you can print. It's truly amazing, absolutely amazing how detailed the print comes up. And there's so many ways to use it, and it's just paper, baby. It's not even a stencil. It just works so well. Now this one is one of the threads series. I absolutely love this series because you can see the glorious threads in the beautiful paper. It's almost like material. It's absolutely incredible. Handmade, yes, from Coo. Putting it on the plate, easy peasy. Pulling it off and putting on another color. This one I've used bronze and copper. It pulled up absolutely glorious. I just love it. Again, there's so much detail in the print. This one is another one of the thread series. Now I'll put all the details in the description under the video. Go and have a look there if you want to know what the papers are. And don't forget there's a discount code for Coo because the more we save, the more papers we get to buy. I'm loving this one. I love the detail in it. Strong lines from the threads prints, and it looks beautiful in turquoise, don't you think? Now this piece is one of the new Flexi Mulberry papers. Absolutely amazing. This is definitely almost like fabric, and it's made of bark. It's incredible. I thought it would take a really good textured print on the plate, but really when I pulled it off, I think it absorbed more than it left. It did leave a light textured mark, which I thought was really nice, so I decided to enhance that by spraying it with the ice inks, which is fabulous, but the only problem is you do have to wait for them to dry. I thought I waited long enough, but in reality I don't think I did. So I put another paper on the plate to create some more texture. That looks absolutely fabulous. That printed really well. But in the end, after I pulled all the paper off, rolled on the paint and pulled the print, you can't quite really see a lot of the ice ink. I think it got absorbed because I didn't wait long enough. But it works really well if you do wait. It's got a little shimmer, not too bad. The print itself is really beautiful. It's got great textured marks. You can see the texture from the printing of the first piece of paper, and then these marks are from the printing of the second one. It really is fun and so easy just to use paper to create those textures and those prints on the plate. Now the last one that I was trying was one of the other beautiful handmade Coo papers. Bamboo, I think it's called. You'll have to have a look on the website. Anyway, it absorbed quite a bit of the paint. It did leave some pretty cool marks. And you don't know until you try. You just have to experiment. The black looks quite dramatic on the gel plate, and then of course I had to pull it with the bronze. Little bit of Titan buff, and it came up rather beautiful. I'm thinking I'm pretty happy with it. I like all these marks. It's really different. They're the kind of textured marks that you really couldn't make. Well, I couldn't make them anyway. like drawing them because I wouldn't know where to put them. But when you can use something organic like beautiful handmade paper, it creates marks that you wouldn't really be able to specifically create. You could create a stencil perhaps, but it's not quite the same. There's just nothing quite the same like using beautiful textured paper on the gel plate to create marks, especially if you're doing multiple layers. Telling you, it's so much fun, but you do have to experiment to see which ones are going to work. This one probably is still one of my absolute favorites, but then I do really like the threads series as well. I found that the paper with the strong thread lines through it print a lot better than the other softer handmade paper, but it does create organic marks that you really can't reproduce any other way. So I think it's worth your time and effort having a little experiment. Look at all my beautiful prints that I have now, absolutely perfect for collage. Remember what I said, there's a difference between the paper that's absorbent, that will clear the paint off your plate by absorbing it, or paper that's stronger, that will have the resistance to really pull those layers up. So have a little experiment. If you find your paper is tearing, then you might need to try something else or let the layers dry. That was really quite a significant step forward for me. I'm still not so good at waiting and allowing things to dry, but I think I'm getting better at it. And it's always good to see what other people are using because that's how you learn, that's how you grow and develop. That's how I found my absolute favorite Japanese sketch paper. Seeing what other people are using and creating with and trying it yourself. So I really hope you were inspired today. I hope you learned something about paper. You can use it for absorbent, for resistance, and you can use it for texture. All of it's fabulous, all of it makes absolutely wonderful collage paper, and then we can create beautiful artworks. Some of these prints really are magnificent just by themselves. Do we really want to tear them up? I don't know, man. That's always the toughest question. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed my discussion about paper. I hope it clears up all of the questions. And just know, if I say I'm using Japanese rice paper, it's going to be this one here. If I'm using other paper, well, then you're going to have to guess. It's probably going to be Kozo paper if it's beautifully textured or soft and absorbent. So, if you want more information, don't forget to have a look in the description under the video. You'll find discount codes. That's where you'll find the papers, the stencils, the colors, and whatever else I was experimenting with today if you want to know more. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope to see you again next time in the studio.